Hey there, Emily here at the Movement Clinic, and today's tutorial is breaking down pigeon pose or pigeon prep. This is a deep hip opener that we encounter in a lot of yoga classes and typically encountered and taught in a more passive variation. I'm going to encourage an active variation, and I'm also going to teach you a very simple modification in case you're not in the mood for a deep hip opener in class at some point, or if maybe the knees or hips just aren't ready to go that deep. All right, hop on your mat and let's get pigeon posing. Okay, so I'm going to start by showing you the shape of pigeon pose and the very simple variation that we can do, also known as figure 4, which you may already know. But pigeon pose essentially places one of your shin bones somewhere parallel-ish to the front of the mat. My shin does not get parallel to the front of the mat, so I'm not really worried about that shape, but more or less we find ourselves here so that the front leg is in sort of like a 90-degree angle with the knee moving outside of the hip, back foot somewhere in line with the back hip. And typically we see pigeon pose kind of taught here in this more sleeping swan or kind of passive variation, which can feel really nice. I can already feel how nice it is on my left hip. The very simple modification for this would be found lying on the back, where we would simply cross the left ankle over the top of the right thigh. You notice this nice kind of same parallel figure 4 variation that we're finding with what would be our front leg if we were facing downwards on our bellies. And we can simply come here, both feet flexed. And I feel this in my left hip just as much as I did before, except this time I don't have the weight of my body with gravity pressing down, adding to that kind of intense pressure. So for some people, this is just a little bit friendlier, especially if we have knee or ankle things happening, or maybe just super, super tight hips. And even this might feel like a lot. So you can also find a nice kind of opening here while you gently press that knee out with the right foot planted. Okay, so now I'm gonna break down pigeon pose. And again, we're gonna find an active and passive variation and explore both here today. I'm gonna turn around so that I can show you with the right leg forward from both angles. So, right shin forward. And here, I want my knee to be outside of my hip line, or at least the direction that we want the knee to be moving in. If your knee is directly in line with your hip, that's fine too. Again, depending on what's going on in that very tight hip socket, their tiny little bony differences can make a big difference in our real mobility and capabilities of mobility. So just keep that in mind. So I like to imagine that my heel is sort of moving in line with my groin. Flex that front foot gently. So we're gonna press the pinky edge side of the foot in. As we say, it's to protect the ankle, but really it activates this entire outer line of our calf that kind of helps to protect this outer knee from maybe getting a little cranky as all of this gravity and weight is pressing down. Okay, and now this back leg moves out behind us. So here you might notice that this front hip is really lifted up. That's fine, especially at first. This is why I kind of like the active version to bring a little bit more warmth and fluid and fresh blood flow to the area so that maybe the tissues become more and more pliable as we sit here with more active and passive and active and passive. But I'm obviously babbling and getting ahead of myself. So let's break it down. Front foot flexed, gently pressing in. Press the shin bone in slightly. Knee moving outside or in the direction of trying to move outside of the line of your hip. Okay, okay? Low belly lifted. Keep all of that. Gaze back at that back foot. I had a teacher once keep the toes tucked under to press forward and down through the ball of the foot. So there's that option. Most people plant the top of the foot. Now, gaze back at your back foot and make your big toe disappear behind your heel. So oftentimes the foot sickles in, make the big toe disappear and reach out through the big toe a lot. Now again, low belly lifted, roll that left hip forward, squeeze the butt to make that happen, and draw the outer right hip back. Hips are moving towards squaring to the top of the mat. Now, you can plant your fingers somewhere in front of that front shin bone. Actively press into the back foot until the knee lifts and the thigh is really squeezing tight, and press into that front shin. I can feel this way more in the outer hip and now in the front of my left hip as I'm active. And then we can soften into passive. And I feel how much lower my front hip is. Now I don't really have as much feeling of opening in this front hip anymore. So as we inhale, let's press in, be active, press, press, press. Exhale, soften down. Again, press in, inhale. Exhale, soften down. Now we can take a more sleeping swan or sleeping pigeon version. I like to do this really specifically myself. So I plant my fingertips, lift the belly, send my sit bones back, and then walk fingertips forward. Inhale, lengthen forward through the heart, send sit bones back, and soften heart down. So lengthen the spine, reach my hips away to keep length in the spine, and soften my heart down first before anything else. So hands are still active, shoulders are still active. Here you can even press away with the shin. Kind of go active and passive. Excellent. And let's go ahead and walk the hands back and come on out. So shift over to the right, swing your left leg forward. I'm not going to repeat on my right side because that already feels nice and open. And I'll show you from this angle now. So left shin bone in front, heel is moving maybe somewhere in line with the groin, knee is maybe moving outside of the left hip, but if it's more forward, again, no worries there. Work with where your hips are at, work with what's possible for you. Also really important to note that maybe it's possible on one side and maybe you have to use a modification or a variation like figure 4 on the other side. Just roll with it. It's fine. Do whatever helps you to feel better in your skin, okay? So let's repeat the same thing we did on the first side. Flex the front foot, press the pinky edge side of the foot into the mat. Start feeling that sense of pressing down into the shin bone and outer knee. Start to move that back leg behind you. Gazing back at that back foot. Now, we plant the top of the back foot, make the big toe disappear behind that heel. I always kind of look back and check. Roll the outer right hip forward as you draw the left hip back. Again, we want those hips to start moving in the direction of squaring. It is not a requirement by any means. But try not to just fall to this outer left hip. It really takes us out of it. And then as we kind of are pressing down, like that just doesn't quite feel right. I can actually feel some tendons and things sliding around my thigh bone, the head of my femur. So stay upright. Even if you're way up here, stay upright, okay? Keep the center of gravity straight down so that you can slowly start to create this active and passive range of motion play that we're working with today. So fingertips can stay planted if you would like. Front foot flexed, pressing down into that shin, press down into the back foot, so much that you lift the knee, lift up, inhale. Exhale, release. Inhale, press down, lift up. Exhale, release. Low belly lifted. Inhale, press down, lift up. Exhale, release. And again, if we want to find this sort of more passive sleeping figure or shape, walk fingers out, lengthen heart forward, send sit bones back, walk hands a little forward, lengthen heart forward, sit bones back, lifting low belly, soften your chest down first. Keep arms active, or maybe you might soften the forearms down this time if the shoulders are fatigued. Maybe it's the end of a class and you just want to chill out here. Good, and then go ahead and walk hands back. Shift your weight over to the left, bend that right knee, swing the leg forward. Lengthen your left leg, give your knees a little shake and a jiggle and a wiggle. All right, so that is pigeon pose, finding, again, more active range of motion and passive range of motion. And of course, as always, figure 4 is there for you whenever you want or need it. And I often change the two out pretty frequently. I don't practice pigeon a ton, mostly because it doesn't do a lot for me in every single practice. So we can be a little bit more mindful with what variation we choose depending on what we really need and what suits our purposes for movement that day. All right, let me know what you think in the comments. I look forward to seeing you next time. And of course, let me know if you have any requests for tutorials, and I am here for it. I'll see you next time. Ciao.